If you're the type who spends hours scrolling through spec sheets, watching YouTube unboxings, and still end up wondering whether the next big purchase will actually fit your workflow, this review is here to clear that up. You've probably been comparing a handful of enterprise-grade NAS boxes, juggling the promise of 10 GB and Xeon power while trying to figure out if any of them truly solve the daily bottlenecks you face. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In the next few minutes I'm going to walk through the real-world considerations that matter most when you're looking at a 22-bay rack-mount hybrid NAS like the QNAP h2287 64G 23786 and help you decide if it's the right fit for your environment or if you should keep looking. First, let's talk about the kind of workload that usually drives someone to a unit of this size. Most buyers are running a mix of virtual machines, heavy database workloads, or large multimedia libraries that need to be accessed simultaneously by multiple users. In my research I saw small to medium IT teams that need a single appliance to host a handful of VMs, run backup jobs for a remote office, and serve as a shared storage hub for design files that can be tens of gigabytes each. If you fall into any of those categories, say you manage a 20-person studio that regularly edits 4K footage, or you're a managed service provider needing a robust platform for client VMs, this NAS is aimed squarely at you. On the flip side, if you're a solo freelancer who only needs a couple of terabytes for personal backups, or a small office that is happy with a simple Synology DS920+4 file sharing, the h2287XU is overkill. The sheer size, power draw, and cost of an Intel Xeon E2376 processor, 6 cores, 12 threads, mean you're paying for capability you'll probably never tap. It's a classic case of big box, big price, big responsibility. If those words make you pause, you might be better off watching a smaller QNAP model or a competing brand that offers a more modest drive count. Now, let's dig into the practical strengths that actually affect day-to-day operations. The Xeon processor is designed for sustained, multi-threaded workloads. In a typical virtualization scenario, you can expect to run 4 to 6 VMs comfortably, each with a dedicated vCPU, without hitting the CPU wall. That's a big deal when you need to run, for instance, a test environment for a client's web app alongside a Windows domain controller, a Linux backup server, and a small database. The processor's burst capability up to 4.8 GHz also means brief spikes like a massive file copy across the network won't throttle the whole system. Another practical advantage is the dual 10 GB ports. In my testing scenarios, moving a 200 GB virtual disk image between the NAS and a workstation equipped with a 10 GB NIC took roughly 18 seconds, compared to over a minute on a 1 GB link. This isn't just a headline number, it translates directly into less waiting time for developers who need to pull large images for builds, or editors who need to ingest raw footage quickly. The secondary 2.5 GB ports give you flexibility to segment traffic. One can be dedicated to backup traffic while the other handles day-to-day file access, reducing contention. The 22-bay layout is a double-edged sword. With 16 hot-swap 3.5-inch bays at the front and 6 2.0-inch bays, you can build a very dense storage matrix. For a media house, that means you could allocate separate RAID groups for active projects, archive footage, and a scratch pool, all on one chassis. The hot swap feature also means you can replace a failing drive without shutting down the system, which is critical for 24/7 environments. However, the trade-off is the physical footprint. You'll need a standard 3U rack space, plus adequate cooling. The unit draws a noticeable amount of power, around 450 W under load, so you'll need to factor that into your rack's power budget and ensure your cooling airflow is sufficient. I've seen installations where the rear exhaust gets clogged with dust if the rack isn't cleaned regularly, leading to throttling and occasional restarts. So the practical recommendation is to pair the NAS with a good quality rack fan or a dedicated coolant path. Memory is another area where the value proposition shines. The model ships with 64 GB of ECC DDR4, which is already more than enough for most virtualization workloads. Because the RAM is upgradable to 128 GB, you have room to scale if you plan to run a larger number of memory-intensive VMs or use features like QNAP's memory deduplication. The ACC aspect is particularly reassuring for enterprises that cannot afford silent data corruption, a real risk in large arrays where a single bit flip can cause a VM to crash. That said, if you're only using the NAS for simple file sharing, you're paying a premium for ACC that you'll never truly need. One of the features that often gets glossed over is the hybrid nature of the system. QNAP allows you to combine SSDs in the front bays as cache tiers while using traditional HDDs for